Okay, Katie, good to see you. Thank you for joining today.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So, probably should do a couple quick introductions first and foremost. I'm Julian Johnson. My company is Unify Solutions Inc. I'm also a freelance coach and leadership development coach and executive coach, working with a number of different firms and of course, my own private practice as well. And this is, Katie, I don't know how you'd like to introduce or describe yourself, but I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. I know I've been thinking a lot about lately around introductions as I get on more customer calls these days. So I'm Katie Weiss, and I lead a team of account executives and client solutions managers at LinkedIn within our marketing solutions division. I've been in seat for about a year and a half within this role. And prior to that, I've been at LinkedIn for almost 5 years, but prior to my moving over to marketing solutions, I led a team of relationship managers, still within sales, within our sales solutions division. Prior to that, spent most of my career in sales in some capacity or operations. And I've been working with you, Julian, now for almost 6 months.
That sounds amazing, amazing background and kind of your moves there at LinkedIn. And that's actually a nice kind of intro because that's what I remember being introduced to you, a senior manager, right? Becoming a manager of managers and just working on your strategic leadership and some of those aspects of who you are. So to your point about working together for 6 months or so, I think our official engagement, our coaching engagement was October to February.
So was it? Why did I think it was longer than that? I think it speaks to the impact, but yeah.
So, I mean, but that's pretty typical, just a 3-month engagement. And I'm curious of kind of what was going on. Where were you at? Would you be willing to give us a picture of where were you at when you were introduced or looking at coaching for this iteration?
Sure. Yeah. For a little bit of context, and I will answer that question. I have worked with coaches now on and off for, 3.5 years, maybe almost 4. And just for a bit of context on when you and I got to had the pleasure, I've had the honor of getting to work with you. It was part of doing a 360 review. So going deep and getting feedback from not only my peers, but people on my team and cross-functional partners. I have done one other 360, maybe about 3.5, 4 years ago, and decided to do it again because I've been at a point to what you just noted on thinking about what's next for me, and amplifying my impact and moving into potentially managing managers in like the short-term future, or the short term versus the long term. Mm-hmm. And so really the genesis of it was doing the 360 and was able to debrief with you afterwards and then make a plan against some of the feedback that I was getting, but also putting my own lens on it to say, okay, based on this feedback, what is really the most salient themes for me? And what do I want to really get tight on? And that for me was getting more in touch or intentional with my own values and my own vision and mission and purpose as a leader. I think, we can easily get off track with that. And so for me, and I may be getting ahead of myself, that's what you and I worked really deeply on for about 3 months.
I think that's powerful. And I appreciate the fact that you went there and shared that because it is potent. And there's something about what you said about, first of all, okay, the 360. So great tool. You were seeking, that outside in perspective on your leadership. But I also just love how you were saying, hey, the inside out portion of who you were, how you showed up at work mattered to you as well. So that vision work, value alignment. Katie, absolutely love that share. I really think that's a relevant thing for a lot of people, right?
It really is. And 360s, let's be clear, doing a 360, and I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this and maybe it'll be edited out, but like, they're scary as shit. Like, I think many of us, I think as leaders, and in order to, maintain relevancy and impact and like growth, have to lean in that way. but it doesn't make it less scary or difficult to do some of that because it's pretty deep. So I want to share for anyone that's listening to this, or that if this gets paid forward to anyone in another way, that it is not an easy thing to do, but it's very beneficial in the short and long term.
Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people will resonate. It is scary. You can boil the ocean with some of that feedback. So that we'll get to that because I really want to hear.
Okay.
I really want to hear some of your thoughts on that. So okay, maybe let's go here really quickly. So, okay, expectations versus reality, right? So you had to select the coach and, saw some things about my coaching style on paper, but I'm curious, how did that reconcile with your reality from our time working together? Any deltas there or anything that surprised you rather?
Honestly, no. I mean, no surprises. I'm pretty particular. I go with my gut a little bit. And I could just tell, given your profile, that you had a very like people first, human led approach to coaching and coaching the whole person. And that really spoke to me. I think too, your background, having a military background as well is intriguing to me because I think there's a lot of crossover with like the work that the military's done in terms of leadership, no matter what side of the line that you're on, politics aside. I think there's so many wonderful learnings from what the military has done continues to do at a leadership level. So that really attracted me to wanting to work with you. And then I knew, it's kind of like you never know when you go on almost a blind date or like whatever it might be, meeting someone for the first time, or if it's maybe even finding a psychologist, right? That you don't, on paper, they look great, but you really don't know, or a regular doctor, you don't know how it's going to be until you're face to face. And I knew immediately from talking with you that there was a complete connection right away. And there were no gaps between how you represented yourself and how you showed up. And so that to me was like the sign from the first moment of meeting you that this was going to be a fruitful partnership.
That is phenomenal insight and kind of how you thought through some of that analysis and what you felt. There's something about that compatible check. My question as a coach sometimes is, do I want to work with you? And so I really,
two-way street.
It's a two-way street, and it's super critical. And I love just the color that you provided with some of that because it's very real. So, okay. Impacts on your leadership approach. So everything you were saying about some of what you were navigating as you were working at LinkedIn and as you were leading this newer sales group and some potentiality for you from our coaching partnership together, did you notice anything in reality that affected or shifted your leadership at work?
Yes, a lot. And it's funny because we talked about this, I think, towards the end of our engagement together, was that I had this aha moment that up until I started working with you, I had felt like I had lost myself a bit. And people might be wondering, like, what the hell do you mean by lost yourself? You've been there for 5 years. Where could you have been? But I had started a new role within the organization 18 months ago. And transitions are tough, even when you've been even if you're at the same organization, there's cultures that exist and processes and different, like various different things across the organization, no matter where you are, that could impact your experience or how you're showing up or your ramp time. And I have been so focused in the first year plus in that my newer role on what I wasn't doing right, or what I could be doing, or where my gaps were, or whatever it might be, that I actually lost being in touch with who I am and what I care about and my superpowers that make me unique and add value to the organization I'm in. And so that's where, when I say I lost myself, it's I not forgot, but I had done so much intentional work over the years with that. And then I didn't even really think about it or lean into it for a good 12 plus months. And then your muscle atrophies right within that space. And so when we started to work together again, I started to find that part of me that gave me back that confidence to lean into my superpowers, to make sort of more of those mind-body connections that I had been not doing for an extended period of time and really felt disconnected from. And I can give examples too, but like that's the overarching kind of headline.
Yeah, no, I totally hear that and respect that acknowledgement, right, of not being in touch as frequently. I've heard this, and it sounds similar to what you're expressing there. Is that you can get so myopic in the work and so focused sometimes for folks that are more relational on serving others, and to where it can be regenerative to have a space, make a space to just remind yourself or get back in touch, get grounded, get connected, so on and so forth. So that's what I'm hearing. And I really respect and appreciate that acknowledgement, honestly, Katie. So excellent. So you already kind of hit on this, but I'm wondering if you'd be willing to maybe dig a little bit deeper on how then in all of that, or maybe something separate, how did that impact you? Not just you, Katie, at work, the LinkedIn sales leader, but Katie, the human, Katie, the person. How did that affect you? I'm curious, did you notice that affect you in any other areas of your life, or was it?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, I think that disc really impacted my personal life too. And now the reconnection is, so I say, I'm a mom of two and a wife to my husband, Steve, and really care deeply about family and friends. That's, people have asked me like, what motivates you? And I've said that my heart beats for my family, first and foremost. And so that I was finding that I wasn't showing up as my best self as a mom and as a partner and a friend, because I was feeling so disconnected from myself in my day to day. And when you spend 40 to 50 hours a week, as so many of us do with our jobs, and if you're feeling disconnected in that spot, it's really hard to then pivot into your personal life and all of a sudden find this reconnection. Because I was just tired too. When you're leading with one part of yourself and not the other, like I was feeling exhausted. And so then it would carry over into my personal life. And I'd say, I don't know if this is part of the question or if I'm jumping ahead, but I think getting tight again on my values and my power phrase that we worked really closely with, I've been writing every single day in my gratitude journal and been very focused on that over the last couple months, is I'm feeling more like myself. And my husband's noticed it. He's like, "Oh, you seem a lot happier. What's going on?" And I'm not going to say I'm still not sure with my kids sometimes, because a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old are challenging no matter what. Yeah. But I think I'm feeling more like sense of joy and lightness with my kids, which that's what I ultimately want, because I want to be present for them. And part of it's being present because you're filling your cup in other ways or connecting to yourself in other ways at work, that then allows you to be more present in your personal life too.
I'm hearing
your question.
Oh gosh,
Okay.
you more so than I was even thinking, but I appreciate that, because I didn't know, I hadn't heard that from you.
We didn't talk about that.
But I think it's amazing, and I think it's so prevalent when you are able to get reconnected to what matters to you, in any area of life. It's equanimity is the word that comes to mind, right? Being whole is really a 360 inside of you. So I'm hearing some of those benefits, and it makes me really happy. It makes me really happy to hear. And sure, I want to make sure I'm accurate and humble in this as well. Right? This isn't all strictly because of what we did in our coaching. It sounded like you were really kind of paying attention and refocusing in on what mattered for you and what you needed across multiple areas of your life. And so coaching was one tool to do that. And I'm grateful to have had that, have had to be here with you in that moment in time. So, but I hope, am I saying correctly? Is that fair enough?
Sure. But I honestly think, yes, and I'll use that. That's my favorite phrase these days. And I've never taken improv, is yes, I was focusing on other things, having a therapist makes a gosh darn difference, right? Like it's not just one thing ever, but I do think that the one area, the missing piece up until you and I started working together was that work, that coaching work you were doing completed the puzzle. So I don't want to take away from like what the impact it truly did have.
Well, I respect that. I appreciate that clarification and that feedback too. I think that's I like the way you put that. It's like a puzzle piece, and these things kind of all work together.
Yeah.
That's definitely have felt it and seen that. So, okay, that is helpful to just understand kind of what you were navigating, what you saw, what you felt, and maybe some of those results at a high level. I'm curious. Selection process, right? So,
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, what elements would you share with others that you think is important, both when identifying timing to bring on a coach to kind of fill that puzzle piece, like you said, but also like who to partner with or what. I'm going to be a little bit more specific. In order to have that trusted, safe place where it's not with a pastor or a priest or your parents or a consultant, all these other different roles that you can go to or use to grow in your career or leadership or as a person. I'm curious how you select or what elements might be important when selecting a coach to really help you, when we use that word cartography, help you map out your values and what's important to you. Is there any insights? I'm curious of how you see that.
Such a good question. Because I think that's what so much of us struggle with even taking the step to getting one, because you don't even know where to start. And again, that could be a doctor, therapist, coach, whatever it is, because it feels like such a heavy, vulnerable investment. It's important, but it's a vulnerable space to be in when you're in that kind of relationship with someone in that way. For me, it's always about, I don't look for someone to have exactly the same experience as me by any means, but if their values and how they approach and look at the world is similar to me, that's personally really important. I want to be challenged. So it's not to say that I want someone who agrees with everything I say and is like, and that's not what coaching's not about that. But, I'm not looking for that someone to look like me, be like me. But if they have similar values and a perspective on more of like a holistic, people first, human led style, I am down. And that's what I personally look for. But I would encourage anyone who is trying to figure out what's the criteria for really to look inwards around like what matters to you. And I know like a values exercise is something that you and I have done and people can do it on their own, but like really thinking through that. And then the other piece would be like, what are you looking to work on? So if there's a specific area or a competency that you're hyper focused in on, making sure that you're choosing someone who's passionate about that same area, has expertise, and align in that way. Because just because you're seeking a coach doesn't mean we're all seeking it sometimes for very different reasons. So making sure aligning with someone's like background and expertise. The third thing, and again, you never know until you like meet with someone, you don't know it on paper, is I go with my gut. Like, I think listen to your gut. And for me, if someone can keep it real and is authentic, that's really, really important to me. And if I don't feel that right away, that's a barrier for me with creating psychological safety and like making progress. And again, that's going to differ for everybody, but I'd say like, listen to your gut is the third thing once you get to talk to someone.
Yeah. Hard to go wrong with those three levels of analysis. And I like the gut check at the end of it all, because that's usually a useful indicator, useful radar. Right. So appreciate that perspective. I'm going to share this with you. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. So I've heard and I've felt often people struggle with this concept, especially in coaching, of, hey, I want advice.
Yeah.
I'm struggling, or I'm dealing with another person that's contentious or a conflict, or I got to manage 2 levels up and they're not listening to me. My communication is not effective, or they're navigating whatever kind of leadership challenge they may be navigating. And when they get on a coaching call, maybe they have a specific issue they want to talk through, and they're like, how do you solve it? And when I take them through the process of coaching, usually it's not by me just giving them advice, but asking them questions that really have forced them kind of look inward. And I will share my experience, of course. But I think the struggle that I keep running into or hearing from people is I didn't realize that the way you were asking questions or the way that we were solving challenges was by getting me to kind of open up a bit first, then problem solve.
Yeah.
Like something about that process that I think is inverted from just giving advice on the front end. I'm wondering if you felt that, or if you have any, sentiment on did you notice that, or what was your experience in some of that, if you would?
Yeah, I think that's a normal, well, yes, I've noticed it with you where you have held up very much a mirror for me, which I appreciate because I knew that was the part of coaching, and you learn this over time, is like you as the coachee, I don't know if that's even a term, but like the receiver of the coaching, you have everything inside of you, right, already to be able to, you have the answers inside of you. Oftentimes they're just blocked for various reasons, or they may not be coming as more as fluid as you would like them to. And so the role for you as a coach is really to hold up a mirror and be able to reflect back and ask those types of questions, which honestly at first is fucking awkward. I'm going to use that language because it is. And because you feel like, why is this person asking me? And this isn't specific to Julian per se, but any coach that's doing a really good job, as you have done, is asking you questions that can feel kind of like awkward at first if you're not used to it. Or like, why are you asking me these questions? Like, do you not even trust or like understand what I'm trying to tell you? And then kind of once you get past that, like, because it does take a while to adjust if you're not used to that, you start to realize how much power you have inside of you, that's already there that you don't even know. And so I think, in the process with you asked me, you did a ton of open-ended questions and like true coaching questions, which at times I'm like, I don't even know how to answer that, but let's give it a try. What I appreciate though, and this is a personal preference, is that when I have asked for your experience or some guidance, or I'd say, you know what, Julian, I need advice. Take off the coaching hat for a second. I really need this for you. And you could push back if you wanted to. But in instances when I did really ask that, I think you knew it's because I genuinely I was at a crossroads and I was stuck and I didn't need the coaching that actually might have made me feel worse. So appreciate that you would like take the coach hat off and keep it real with me and give me some of your own experience, because that combination at times can be really helpful. I hope this answered that question, but
Absolutely.
my experience with you at least.
No, I really respect and appreciate that. And this is valid and true. And it's a challenge sometimes. So I think it's useful for people to hear that. And for me, I've got a varied background, consulting, teaching, etc. I like to lead with coaching. And to your point, right, when there's times to maybe shift hats or switch hats, happy to give some of that. But there's a way to do it as well. And, I think the big thing that I've heard that I at least desire is not to force my values or judgments on you or any of my clients, because that does really allow for you to actually have the space to make the shifts that you need to make. Even if I do give you advice, it's going to be after we honor whatever your values and system of beliefs are. So, okay, we've gone for a bit. This has been very helpful, just to kind of get a little bit of a taste of like what coaching is and how it's benefited you. I'm going to, because I love just how you've communicated and what you've spoken about already, free range it a little bit. Katie, is there anything else, anything that you feel would be important to share, or anything else top of mind for you that you think might be important?
I mean, I'll just go back and say like the power of a power phrase. I mean, that's where we left. And I know I touched on that. I can't tell you how much more seen I feel and how I do feel like I know I mentioned earlier, I lost myself, but I really, really want to put a fine point. And we did more than just talk about values and work on my power phrase. We did various different exercises, and you gave me various different resources and materials, which I did as, homework and follow-ups. But I'd say like the magnum opus for me coming out of what was a really short engagement when you think about it, but the impact it had on me in that short amount of time is what I really want to overemphasize right now, is being able to walk out of our 3-month engagement and say, I have this like beautiful power phrase that has given me hope, has given me power back, has given me like focus, is really such a beautiful gift, and something that I again had it inside me, but I needed someone to help coach it out and like help me make sense of it. So I want to leave us with that, because it has been such a tremendous light at what was a very dark tunnel. It felt like for an extended period of time. So just want to end it with that, and that's why when you and I talked about sort of like being a guide or figuring out sort of a map of like what's next, that's really been crucial for me to finding my way back. So I'll leave us with that.
Hey, that is a beautiful way to leave it. That hope, that power, that focus, and that light. I think that's absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much for taking the time to share today. I really appreciate it. I think the people who watch this will resonate with multiple pieces of what you provided as far as your experience. And I think this was just amazing. So thank you so much. I think this might be a good place to pause for our talk.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great one.
You too.